Crazy Shots is probably the only routine I ever did that was born right on the show, live, in full view of whatever portion of the nation happened to be watching that night. It was my custom every night to play one piano solo, sometimes more, but usually just one number, usually some pretty old ballad that I love by Cole Porter or whoever. And as great as Dwight Hemme and our camera director was, there are only a few things you can do in photographing a pianist. You can show a close-up of his fingers on the keys, you can take the profile shot, the shot moving across, showing the hammers hitting the strings, and a few others. And one night after we'd been on the air for just a few weeks, it was still the local version, I stopped right in the middle of a number because a thought had just come to my mind, and I said, "Dwight?" And he said, "Yeah, what?" He pressed the button in the booth. I said, "It's just occurred to me that although you take the most beautiful shots I've ever seen of me playing the piano, you are limited to a certain extent because there's only one me, there's only a piano, but there's my feet, whatever." I said, "Let me go back to the top of this number now, if this is okay with you." He said, "Yeah, whatever you want." This was on the air live, yeah. So we didn't really ever rehearse routines like that. I just said, "I'll play the piano in spot number 6. So I said, "I'll go back to the top of the number, and this time I don't care what you do photograph, but just don't photograph anything the way you have been for the past several weeks." He said, "Okay, you got it." So I had no idea what he was going to do with his cameras. So I went back, and I was playing Stardust or some sweet old song. And the first shot is a tight close-up of my left foot. Just looked funny in the context of what I was playing. If I'd been playing silly music, it wouldn't have been that funny. But the music was so sweet and lyrical. Then the next shot is a close-up of my belt buckle, or whatever the camera could see. Then a tight close-up of my left ear. And then a close-up of a stagehand looking like this, very tired backstage. I don't remember all the things he photographed. But each shot was funny, given the total context. If it wasn't that context, there's nothing funny about seeing a stagehand, in the middle of a piano solo. So a typical example of Dwight's creativity. So we realized that we had stumbled over something. So we didn't do it every night. I don't think we did anything every night. But a few nights later, it was time for me to do another one of those sweet ballad piano solos. And this time, as I watched what he was doing, I knew what I was playing, so my eyes were on the camera to see what he was doing. He had somebody, like a Salvador Dali, hot water bottle was draped over the edge of the piano in the strings area. It just looked so silly that we all laughed at it. And then the next night we did it again, and this time he had somebody move in a big office water bottle, where you press a button and get a little white cup of water. And Nick Vanoff walked on right in the middle of my number, poured himself a drink of water, drank and walked off stage. Nobody explained who he was or why he was entitled to a drink on my time. And that's how Crazy Shots started. Then we got more and more involved, more complex, but it was basically Crazy Shots. Well, once we got into the formularizing of it, it wasn't ad-lib. Dwight originally ad-libbed it, as according to the terms I've outlined. But then later our writers would dream up funny stunts. And finally, by the time we came to, this is 2 or 3 years later, to doing the primetime comedy show, we realized we had a good, strong 3 or 4 minute bit. And then, of course, the planning became more complex. In one instance, we moved into a fairly close shot of an Egyptian sarcophagus, one of those big forms that contained a human body. And an unseen hand at a certain point opens the front of it so you can see what's in it. And what's in it is Steve Lawrence on the phone. "Yeah, will you leave me alone?" And he shuts the door. Stuff like that.